Drug trafficking as a career is fraught with occupational hazards, most notably violence, which in extreme cases can cause death. So when a father learns his wayward son has gone missing, he hopes for the best, but suspects the worst. And when the police can't find him, the father enlists the help of not one, but two psychics.
Now I got a sense right away that he was gone.
You're not looking for a living human being anymore. You're looking for a body, and a body can be anywhere.
But can anyone be absolutely certain, the police or the psychics, if the missing man is dead or alive? Back in 1994, Lawrence Embro was a businessman.
He was, for all intents and purposes, an upstanding citizen, a member of the community. He had a fiance. His fiance and he had were to be married in 3 or 4 weeks. So he had all the characteristics of a normal citizen.
Normal, except his business was dealing drugs. And apart from having a street name, Shaba, Lawrence Embro wasn't your stereotypical supplier.
The number one anomaly in this whole situation was that it didn't appear as though he actually used drugs or had any involvement in drugs. His lifestyle didn't depict that. His family relationships didn't depict that. It appeared as though his involvement was just that of business.
Apparently, Embro's plan was to make enough money to retire from the drug business, go straight, and start a new life with his fiancée in Dallas. But the best laid plans of mice and men.
Oklahoma City 911. Okay, and what's your name, ma'am? If you could just calm down, we've got officers on their way to help you out.
The call was from a woman who had been terrorized by thugs breaking into her home. The woman was Lawrence Embro's mother-in-law-to-be.
There were 3 people in the residence when the incident occurred. There was a woman, she's about 45 years old, and there were 2 children, 9.5 or 10 years old, where the door burst open, and these 2 individuals, both of them with weapons, immediately began striking her, forcing her to the ground, covering her face, loud abusive threats, threatening to kill her, dragging her and telling her, you know, don't look at me, don't look at me, forcing her to the back of the residence where the children were found. At the same time, we're asking, you know, where's Shaba's money? Where's Shaba keep his property, his stuff? Of course, they were dumbfounded by the request. They didn't know what to think, and of course the kids were terrified, and the mother or the woman was cooperative. They all were. As this continued, for whatever reason, and it appears to be just an opportunistic thing, one of the suspects took the woman to a different room and continued searching, and then at one point sexually assaulted her.
Apart from $40 taken from a piggy bank, the assailants leave empty-handed. When Evans interviews the victims, it becomes apparent that the men were looking for Lawrence Embro, but Embro is nowhere to be found. The fact that he doesn't return phone calls immediately raises suspicion.
Had it not been for the fact that the home invasion also included reference to him, there would have been some resistance to taking that kind of complaint or that kind of concern seriously. But given the fact that there was a reference made to him during the home invasion, and that coincided exactly with the time that you know they lost contact with him, it was obvious that they were related.
But in this case, because of the timing of Embro's sudden disappearance and the ransacking of his mother-in-law's home, Evans felt that there was an obvious connection. He called Embro's father and advised him to file a missing persons report with the Midwest City Police Department, the jurisdiction where Embro lived. Now there are 2 official police investigations. While Dan Evans of the Oklahoma City Police Department handles the home invasion, the missing persons case is assigned to Midwest City Detective Pam Gray. One of the first solid leads is the discovery of Embro's car, clean as the day it rolled off the assembly line.
A normal car is going to have prints unless somebody didn't want prints there, in which case That's a red flag. Everything indicated to me something had happened to Lawrence Embro, that he had been killed.
About a month into the investigation, Detective Gray received a phone call from Lawrence Embro's father.
He came to accept the fact that his son was probably dead, but he wanted the body. He wanted to be able to bury his son.
The father was so desperate to recover his son's body that he contacted a local psychic and wanted Gray to meet with her.
I said I would be willing to do anything because we kind of reached a stalemate, a standstill as far as the investigation. A lot of people were talking to the detective in Oklahoma City, and their indication to me was they had been advised not to talk to anybody else, including me. Oklahoma City was working one aspect. I was working the missing person on Lawrence Embro. It's really kind of tough when you run into a stone wall.
Gray, who'd never worked with a psychic before, was in for a rude awakening from her colleagues.
Well, there was a lot of laughter, and I would constantly hear there was no reason for any comments to be made because they would all be humming the theme song to the Twilight Zone. Way out there, Earth calling Sky King, you know. Just rude comments, but you get used to it.
Unperturbed, Detective Gray went and met with psychic Nita Lee.
When I went to the appointment with Nita Lee, her first response to me was, "He's dead." I felt at that point that he was dead.
I said, there's 3 guys that did it, and one of them seemed to be smaller than the other 2.
Gray was really hoping for Nita to pinpoint a location.
And I said, he's northeast of Oklahoma City. There's an old tin barn where he is. I said, he can hear the train as it goes by. So see, his spirit was very much there with him.
A train, an old tin barn, and northeast of the city? Not exactly GPS accuracy.
We're talking a lot of farmland, a lot of pasture land, a lot of ranches. The scope that Nita Lee gave me would have been impossible to walk it.
But Nita did give one other clue. She said the body was not buried. If this was true, it was in practical terms a plus.
We would probably have a better chance of locating the body than if it was buried. Because if it was closer to town, somebody would start smelling it. If it's out in the field, that possibility isn't going to exist. But hopefully somebody who owns some land or wherever would come across the body.
Psychic Nita Lee was able to at least narrow down the search area to the northeast of Oklahoma City. Will a second psychic's clues lead Detective Pam Gray to the exact location and bring a sense of closure to Lawrence Embro's grief-stricken family? August 1994. It's been 3 months since Lawrence Embro went missing. When psychic Nita Lee's predictions don't locate what everyone assumes to be a missing body, the father brings in another psychic, Dr. Sally Heding.
My rule is that if I'm going to take a crime case, I have to work with the law enforcement agency. Sometimes number 1's for my protection, and number 2 is sometimes there are things that I don't think the family needs to know. They're already in pain.
Sally never demands payment for her services, and with good reason.
Because you're not going to always see everything. You're not going to be able to read everyone or pick up on everything. And so if you have that kind of pressure on you, wouldn't there be the fear that you'd start making up shenanigans? You know, well, I really need that money and the mortgage overdue, so maybe this time I'll just fudge a little. So when your livelihood is not contingent on it, then you aren't under that pressure. And you could say, you know what, honey, I can't help you. I don't see a thing around you. It's an absolute blank. Or you can go ahead and do a reading and say, yes, I'm getting this, this, and this. And the same thing for the law work, because all of that is pro bono. I charge nothing. And I tell them my accuracy rate has been tested to be about 80%. If I knew when I was wrong, I would never be wrong. I don't have a clue, not a clue.
Sally, who doesn't like to travel, works from the comfort of her home in California.
I didn't think right off the bat that he was alive.
It was a confirmation of what I already felt, what Mr. Embro had come to feel, what Nita Lee had said, and now Sally Heding was saying it.
I had the sense, because there was money involved, that it was about selling drugs, and that there was a lot of anger around this money, that it was a deal that had gone wrong.
Once again, Sally and Detective Gray were on the same track.
Well, my thought was he hadn't got out of the drug culture, that either a drug deal had went bad, or he was involved in something else that somebody wanted to get rid of him.
One of the things I saw was a blue blanket. I knew they had not buried him. I saw a blue blanket over him.
In sync with Nita, the man is not buried. The blue blanket, a new and pretty specific clue.
I kept being shown flashing a metal sign that said Herefords on it. And I had the sense of prized Herefords. I also saw a barbed wire fence. I knew there was a gravel road. I could hear it. And I also knew that on the road going north, that there were poles all along the side of the road, telephone poles.
Sally is describing the rural area surrounding Oklahoma City exactly as Nita did.
I got a strong sense that people came up from Los Angeles, the 3 people, to meet another man. I had the sense that 3 were African American, and the 4th man was mixed, and that the 3 men were brought up to do Lawrence Embro harm.
Now Sally is getting all these visions while sitting in her home in California, half a continent away from the crime scene, and the only connection with Detective Pam Gray is the other end of a telephone line.
Sometimes I'll see like flashes of images. Sometimes I'll feel as if I'm right there going through it, as if that person has walked through me or entered me and I'm walking along with them, or that they're holding my hand and showing me something. And sometimes it's not like hearing voices, it's from within. It's not like someone's whispering in your ear. Sometimes you'll hear a noise that might be connected with a crime scene or something.
I have to confess, I started imitating my fellow detectives humming the theme song of Twilight Zone. You know, I thought, I've got this phone call and I've got this woman telling me these things. And she's over 1,000 miles away. Yeah, right, you know.
I knew this was a woman who hadn't believed in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy for many, many years, and I think I was on that list, you know, of people to be debunked.
But I tended to believe, or at least have an open mind, because some of what she had told me was consistent with what Nita Lee had told me. But it was strange to me how people 1,500 miles away from each other were consistent in what they were saying.
You know, I really believe that's the exceptional police officer who will set their own belief system aside and do whatever it takes to solve that case. And I think she has that kind of intelligence and insight.
Sally's final prediction was astonishing.
The body's going to be found by deer hunters. It's going to be happenstance that they come upon this body, and there will be 2 of them.
Unfortunately, the notion of 2 hunters finding the body doesn't actually define or even narrow down a time frame. In Oklahoma, there's always some unsuspecting creature in season. Deer, dove, crow, rabbit, wild turkey, pheasant, quail, even squirrels are on the hit list. Detective Gray drives the general area northeast of the city, hoping Sally's clues will lead her to the body of Lawrence Embro. but even she admits it's a long shot.
You would have to have literally millions of people just walking side by side to cover every square inch. It's like the needle in a haystack. Hopefully you will see something, but the possibility of that are slim and none.
Sure enough, the search proves to be a waste of time. All the clues provided by both psychics yield nothing. But what if Sally Heding came to Oklahoma? Perhaps she could pick up more information from being in the general vicinity of the crime. But there is one small snag.
I really didn't want to fly here. No offense to lovely Oklahoma, but I didn't need to. I read energy. I don't need to be someplace else. Energy is eternal. It's the same every place. I don't have to be right there to pick up on the energy. So I didn't feel I had to fly in. I knew I would not be the one that would, oh, here he is, I got him.
Despite this, she reluctantly makes the journey to Oklahoma City.
I came in for the family. There's nothing anyone can do that feels like enough. And so that was the energy that brought me here, to help the family. Did I feel that they were being any difference? No.
Pam Gray, the detective charged with finding the missing Embro, is out of town the day Sally arrives. Detective Larry Beaver, who has never worked with a psychic before, is assigned to escort Sally around the city.
I was a little bit apprehensive, to say the least, but I was a little excited also. Having an opportunity to work with someone outside the field of law enforcement seemed like it was going to be, like I said, exciting to me.
I said, you know, once we get into Midwest City, I'll take over. I'll just tell you where to go, you know. Fortunately, we didn't end up in Cucamonga.
Beaver takes Sally to a known crack house on the outskirts of the city. The rumor on the street was that this is where Embro may have met his end. 2 years before Embro went missing, a mass murder occurred here. 5 women were stripped and stabbed to death. Sally picks up on the bad vibrations.
Wow,
Can't imagine everything that's happened here.
a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things.
While Sally was convinced this was not the location, for the first time she got a sense that Lawrence Embro was executed.
I had the sense of him going to there were stairs. I'm not sure now if it was upstairs or downstairs, but going into a building. He walked in, there were other men in there. Some of them he didn't know. There was the energy of hostility. He was anxious. I could feel that sense of anxiety, discomfort. You know, I don't want to be here. Like God, I'm outnumbered. Then I had this sense of gray around his face or neck. I wasn't sure if it was duct tape or if it was rope. I wasn't sure if they put him in a trunk or a back seat. I knew that they had not driven more than 20 minutes.
The cop and the psychic continued to search the area, keeping roughly within a 20-minute radius from the city. For Sally, the sense of being in the right place is almost tangible.
You know, ever since we pulled up here, I've had an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. And my definition of déjà vu is that you're on path, you're right where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing, that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and that's the feeling I have right now.
As Sally had predicted, the visit to Oklahoma didn't produce a body.
Well, when we wrapped things up at the last location, I felt a little skeptical at the time, not knowing Sally very well and not knowing what to expect. Okay, fine, yes, we didn't find the body, but we found all these signs and symbols and things that you had predicted we would find. And you're telling me now that you believe that, you know, when hunting season starts, that the body will be found. I will just leave it at faith and see what happens.
What Sally had done to move the case forward was to narrow down the area where she thought the body might be found.
One person says something, you can kind of blow it off. 2 people say something, and where there were consistencies with what Sally Heding and Nita Lee, the prior psychic, had said, I was beginning to believe.
Detective Pam Gray's newfound faith drove her to action.
I contacted Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, and 2 deputies went out and rode this 450 acres of the land near where she had indicated his body was nearby.
The deputies find nothing. In November 1994, 2 men are out hunting quail. It's 30 days since psychic Sally Heding was wandering around these parts. It's also the last day of quail hunting season. The unsuspecting hunters make a horrifying discovery. It turns out to be the remains of Lawrence Embro, exactly as psychic Sally Heding predicted.
The body's going to be found by deer hunters.
And I said he's northeast of Oklahoma City, I
One of the
think.
things I saw was a blue blanket. I knew they had
There's no
not
tin
buried
barn where he is, and it has great
flashing a metal sign that said Hereford's.
I said, he can hear the train as it goes by, and he could.
I also saw a barbed wire fence. I knew there was a gravel road. I could hear it.
Every single clue provided by both psychics, Sally Heding and Nita Lee, turned out to be right on target. All the indicators were in the vicinity of where the body was found. Detective Pam Gray was blown away.
There wasn't any more teasing. There wasn't any more humming of the Twilight Zone. However, nobody wanted to come right out and say, hey, psychics are great, psychics are wonderful, you know, this is the answer.
With the discovery of Embro's body, police were now dealing with a homicide. After an exhaustive investigation, detectives were able to piece together what had happened.
The story was Mr. Embro gave approximately somewhere between $20,000 and $60,000 to an associate of his to go to California to pick up a load of cocaine. He reportedly bought a Lexus, went out to clubs, frequented ladies or women, and squandered all the money. To most dope dealers, they have to, or they're going to demand respect, because if they don't have it, they're not going to be able to do their work. If you don't respect them, you're not going to pay them. And a lot of dope dealers will front you dope. In other words, they'll give you the dope without the money on your word that you're going to pay them back. They only do that if they know you or if they respect you as someone in the business. If you don't have any respect on the street, whether you're a dope dealer, you're a cop, you're a doctor, or whatever, you're not going to get very far. There's no honor among thieves, but they do value respect very highly. They don't always earn it, but they value it.
The gentleman with the new Lexus was Steve Gray. Embro, who naturally wanted his money back, put the squeeze on Gray. Gray called his gang member friends in LA, including a man by the name of Isaac Johnson. According to Johnson, Gray wanted Embro off his case, to do what it takes to scare him into backing off. As payment, they keep whatever money they find. However, before they get a chance to confront him, Embro makes a surprise visit to Steve Gray's girlfriend's apartment. Little does he know, the gang from LA are inside.
Lawrence comes to the door, opens up his jacket, shows his gun, says he wants his money or he wants him. So Steve invites him inside, says, I've got some money, let me pay you something, I'll get you the rest later. As soon as he walks in the door, Isaac Johnson tells us that he punches him in the face and Lawrence Embro goes down. They then commence to beating him with their weapons and with their hands and feet until they subdue him. Lawrence Embro died from his wounds. The gang wrapped his head with duct tape, placed him in a blanket, and dumped him on the outskirts of town. The duct tape was exactly as Psychic Sally Heding described. The blanket, down to the color blue, was exactly as she described. Even Sally can't fully explain it.
I wish I could tell you how I know these things. How did I know it was a blue blanket? You know, I mean, there are a lot of colors to pick from there. Is it a lucky guess? Do you know there are times I've really wondered that seriously? Could these be lucky guesses? Am I just doing, randomly da-da-da-da-da? But it comes so quickly and so strongly, I don't believe so. The only way that I can come up with an explanation is that Lawrence was showing me where he was.
All the gang members were charged and found guilty in the murder of Lawrence Embro. Lawrence Embro was 29 when he was murdered. He had planned on going straight, getting married, and moving to Dallas. Unlike many in his trade, he wasn't a drug user. Apparently, he was simply tempted by the lure of making a quick buck, a temptation that cost him his life. May 1995. A woman disappears in Northern California. No one can find her. Then a psychic has a terrible vision.
I could feel her energy, absolutely frantic with fear. She knew she was going to be murdered.
For weeks, they search, but they can't find her.
She's in a ditch, water not far away.
Can the psychic lead police to her body so they can convict her cold-blooded killer? May 24th, 1995. The rural town of Dixon, Northern California. Martin Reese, a police officer from the nearby town of Davis, searches the streets for his ex-sister-in-law, Rosa Talamantes. A single mother of 7, Rosa went out for a beer the night before and didn't return home. With children to feed and get ready for school, this is not like her. She's a responsible mother. Her family are anxious.
My thought at that point was that she may have taken off, who knows, to spend the night somewhere and just didn't bother to tell the children, but somehow in the back of my mind it didn't seem right.
To make matters worse, the night before, Rosa's eldest daughter, Elisa, had a terrifying premonition.
Around midnight, something in my stomach just pulled really hard, and I had a bad pain in my stomach. So the next morning, when I got to the house and found the kids alone, I asked them where my mother had went, and they said she had went to the store with Jose and never came back.
Jose Enriquez, Rosa's boyfriend, is an immigrant farm laborer. Their relationship is volatile. He helps feed her children, but he's also jealously possessive, and their arguments often flare into violence. Elisa goes straight out to the work camp where Jose lives. Maybe her mother had stayed the night with him, but neither of them are there. Frantic, Elisa goes to the police to report her mother missing.
When I got that pain in my stomach, I knew that she was dead. She wouldn't have stayed out that long with her kids at home. She'd never left them alone. Deep down inside, I knew she was really dead.
But without proof that her mother is dead, the police tell Elisa they must wait 24 hours before they can file a missing persons report. Detective Sergeant Elaine Perry was friendly with Rosa.
She and we developed a rapport and a good just communication between us. One day in passing, she had indicated to me that she was in a relationship, but the individual had a bad temper. And she had told him she didn't want to see him any longer. And she had been seeing another gentleman that had also lived here in town.
Rosa had already told Jose that she was going to leave him. And he had threatened her that if she left him, he would kill her.
My fear was that he may have beat her up and just left her abandoned somewhere.
After combing the streets without finding her, Martin offers his services to the Dixon police. As a relative of Rosa's and a fellow police officer, he wants to do all he can to help. Feeling increasingly desperate, Elisa goes back out to look for her mother's boyfriend, Jose. And this time, she finds him, though she soon wishes she hadn't.
I asked him, where was my mother? And he said he had no idea where she was. That's when I told him that I had spoke with the police in town, if he could please follow me into town because they wanted to speak with him. So he followed me, and halfway down the road, he flashed the lights at me and told me to pull over. So I pulled over, and I could tell he was walking up to my vehicle, very antsy, like he wanted to strangle me or do something to me. But he noticed I had my little brother with me, so he just told me, just be a minute, I'm gonna have to return back to the camp, I forgot something. And I said, okay, because I didn't want to frustrate him more, so he went back and I drove into town.
Elisa rushes to the police station to tell them she's found Jose. They must catch him quick before he escapes. Jose had left the camp the night before, but he came back at dawn drunk.
It appears that he did return to the field because he wanted to get a paycheck. He made a statement to the coworker about sending a person to heaven.
Police arrest Jose as he's about to leave the camp. Being the last person to see Rosa, he's a prime suspect. They hold him on an outstanding drunk driving offense, which gives them time to find out what happened to Rosa. Martin helps Elaine interview Jose. He's cold and indifferent and claims he knows nothing of Rosa's disappearance.
His events were that they had bought some alcohol and they had been drinking and that they had taken a drive, and after that he brought her back and he has no idea where she went after that.
But Rosa's children have already told police that he didn't bring her back that evening. In Jose's car, police find a pair of Rosa's earrings, which apparently she never removed. They also find a shirt stained with blood, which Jose claims came from a nosebleed. Meanwhile, Martin begins searching the fields around Jose's work camp. But with such a vast area to cover, it's a fruitless exercise. Days go by. Rosa's family are desperate. Then a colleague of Martin's suggests he make a phone call, which gives the investigation a whole new focus. Psychic Sally Heding is a doctor of psychology and parapsychology. She's also done a lot of crime work with the police.
I'm good at finding bodies. I don't have to be there. In fact, I prefer not being there. It's easier for me to just do it with remote viewing. When someone dies, they're still there, they're just no longer in body. If energy is continuous, then there's no reason for me to go someplace to see something. I can do it just right where I am.
The normally skeptical Sergeant Martin Reese is willing to give it a try.
Hello, Sally. This is Martin. A lot of times, we may hamper ourselves by not considering every option available out there. And I have to remind myself, what is the focus here? Why am I going through this? Because I want to get resolution for the family, for the kids. So, why not?
She had a very strong feeling that this man was capable of taking her life. When Martin gave me the first phone call, I started getting a very strong sense of what had happened to this woman. In fact, as I talked with Martin, I knew that she was dead.
Martin is shocked. The psychic has confirmed the family's worst fears. But how will he prove who killed Rosa? Rosa Talamantes has disappeared. Her boyfriend, Jose, is the last person to have seen her, but he insists he doesn't know where she is. The police lock him up on a drunk driving charge while they investigate. But after a week of searching for her, they find nothing. Her family fear the worst. Martin Reese, an out-of-town police officer and relative of Rosa's, is helping the police to try to find her. He contacts psychic Dr. Sally Heding, who confirms their worst fears.
She'd been murdered by her boyfriend.
Rosa's children tell police that the fateful evening began when Jose took Rosa out to buy some beer. But this trip to the store wasn't like others.
What was unusual about this particular time was that she went without the kids, because she always had one of the kids tied to her hand and the smallest one stuck on her hip. When one of the kids offered to go with them, apparently he said he didn't want anybody to go with him, just the two of them to go to the store. And that's what was unusual.
Sally believes it was Rosa who made the children stay behind.
She knew she was going to be murdered. If she brought her children along, they would be too. If she didn't go with him, he would murder her there and take her children too. They'd all be gone.
Under repeated questioning, Jose starts to change his story.
Jose stated that they had gone out to the camp and that there was a verbal argument, and she got angry at him and had jumped out of his car, and that he turned his car around and went looking for her but was unable to locate her. So he at that point went back to the camp and went to sleep for the evening.
But Sally's vision shows a frighteningly different sequence of events.
He wanted power and control over this woman. He sensed he was losing her. She was a piece of property to him, and he wasn't ready to let go of her. And if he wasn't going to have her, then no one else would. He took her to where he works the land, because that's where he's comfortable. It's a place where he feels in control.
And once out in the fields, Jose gives vent to his violent jealousy. Sally experiences the harrowing last moments of Rosa's life.
I had the sense of pain around my neck, of not being able to breathe. I had the sense of something burning me on my neck. The killing blow was at the neck and the chest that she bled out. That she was in a ditch on the side of the road, curled up in the fetal position.
During the initial conversation, Sally told me, Dad, we needed to go back and search at the place where Jose lived.
I knew she wasn't terribly far away from the ranch. I believe I said she was within 2 to 5 miles, something like that. There was a great sense of urgency on this case because of the concern about him taking off, concern about flight down to Mexico, not being able to apprehend him.
Just over 2 weeks after Rosa's disappearance, a massive search is made of the area surrounding Jose's work camp.
They brought out the mounted police, the canine. They had dogs that specialize in searching for bodies. They had people up in the sky. Just all the volunteers came together and searched the area.
When you're getting into our rural areas, there's miles and miles of roadways and acreage and ditches, drain ditches and ditches in fields, and the ground being constantly worked up, and that somewhat makes a search more difficult.
But even after such a huge effort, there is no sign of Rosa.
We were disheartened by it because, of course, being small agencies in this county, it is difficult to get everyone together like that. And our hope, again, was to find Rosa. We needed to give that family some closure, be it a positive closure or a negative closure. But those children needed to know where their mother was.
My brothers and sisters were scared, and they didn't really know what was going on. They weren't sure. They were also like in shock. They were in disbelief. They didn't want to believe that my mother was gone. The hardest part was waking up in the middle of the night with my little sister screaming and crying and trying to run around the house looking for my mother.
Unmoved, Jose offers the children no hope. He insists he's innocent. And without a body, there's no proof she's dead. He could be telling the truth.
There is always the possibility that what Jose was saying truly happened.
But the evidence is stacking up against him. Tests now show that Jose's blood is type B, and the blood on the shirt found in his car is type A, like Rosa's.
I would say that with the information that I had and the evidence, the shirt, the earrings, my thought was at that point that she was not alive.
Now, certain that Sally is right about Rosa's death, Martin calls her again. The psychic has had another revelation.
This guy.
She asked me if Jose was likely to use abusive language with her in Spanish, and I told her yes, he was a Spanish speaker, because she kept hearing the word puta, something like that coming up.
He said, "You think he called her that? That means whore in Spanish." And I said, "No, I see it being written out. I'm being shown the letters. I'm convinced it's on a sign not far from where her body is." He said, "Well, there's the Puta Creek. That's it."
The Puta Creek happens to flow near Jose's labor camp. It covers a large area. Spurred on by Sally's vision, Martin spends days searching the surrounding fields and ditches.
You can see that it's just acres upon acres of different crops. And a lot of the grass that is left from the previous crops grows over the canals, over the drainage ditch, making it nearly impossible to look into them. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. My mindset was now that if he buried her in a ditch or in a canal somewhere where he only knows, there's a possibility that the body may never be found. And so I was already starting to toy with that idea that perhaps the kids would never have resolution or find the peace and at least being able to give her a proper burial.
For the next 10 days, the searches continue throughout the locality, but there is still no sign of Rosa. Could the psychic be wrong?
I wasn't worried about being wrong. I was frustrated. I was frustrated that I wasn't being shown more as to where she was. For some reason, all I was able to be shown was that sign, a ditch, and water not far away, and I knew she wasn't far away from the ranch.
I really didn't stop to analyze, well, is she really telling me, good information? Should I believe her anymore? Not really. I don't think that really came to play. I think Sally at that point was one more resource that I needed to use.
As the search for Rosa's body enters its 4th week, her family do everything they can to keep up public interest in the case.
I was feeling confused and maybe not really believing that she was really gone. This really dear friend of mine started helping me. She put it in the paper, I think, on the news, that we needed volunteers for a search. And we had a lot of people help. And we went out and searched for her, see if we could find her somewhere out there in the fields. We looked everywhere, ditches and canals and everywhere, and we just could not find her.
Meanwhile, Jose bides his time in silence. If they don't find Rosa's body, once he's served his drunk driving conviction, he'll be free.
If you don't have the body, if you will, you're not going to be able to convince a jury that he killed her. He's going to have to be released. He'll flee the area. And as the focus and the interest in the case dissipates, that's it. And the children would be left with this unresolved loss of their mother.
But psychic Sally Heding is still working the case. And a new vision could easily destroy any hopes Jose has of getting away with murder. Rosa Talamantes has vanished. She's presumed dead. The scant evidence points to her boyfriend, Jose, who insists he's innocent. He's jailed on a drunk driving charge while the police search for her. But after nearly a month, even with clues provided by psychic Sally Heding, Rosa's body can't be found. Martin Reese, a police officer and relative of Rosa's, knows that without a body, the killer will go unpunished, and Rosa's children will be left with the unexplained disappearance of their mother.
I thought that, yeah, he would probably get away with it because where we weren't finding her body, nobody had found her yet, and time was just going by.
Then Sally gives Martin some alarming news.
Sally mentioned that this was not something that Jose had done alone. I also knew Rosa was a fighter, strong. You couldn't just walk up and overpower her. So either Jose got her very, very drunk to be able to overpower her, or had help.
Following this new lead, Martin goes out to interview Jose's co-workers. Sally warns him it could be a mistake.
Well, I felt very strongly that it would be a wild goose chase. They wouldn't talk to him, that this man was someone they were afraid of, someone they were intimidated by.
Well, when I spoke with Sally on the phone, she told me that they would literally stonewall me, that they would not be cooperative. She said one of them would be dark complected and with tattoos on his arms.
I had the sense that he had a tattoo on his left forearm of Jesus, and that this man was going to be very disappointing to Martin. Like, how dare you come out here and ask us questions like this?
As Sally predicted, Jose's co-workers give nothing away. Soon afterwards, they disappear, leaving more questions unanswered. The search is losing momentum.
We began searching immediately after she went missing. And within days, of course, there was high publicity, a lot of interest, a lot of relatives and volunteers, friends of the family came together. But at some point, it was noticeable that the volunteers were not as many. Numbers were dwindling down.
The case was going cold. It can be somewhat depressing. We had these children who were grieving, and that to me was tugging at my heartstrings.
But Sally doesn't give up. She continues to focus on Rosa, hoping she might finally see a clue that will lead them to her body. Finally, Sally does see something new. It's an unexpected twist.
Sally told me that the body will not be found by the police, that somebody not official will find the body, or a passerby.
This is good news. If Rosa's body is found soon, her children will be able to bury their mother and see her killer behind bars. And if Jose did kill her, alone or with help, they must find Rosa's body within the year, or he will have served his drunk driving conviction and, like his friends, vanish. It's a race against time. Then, exactly a month from the day Rosa disappeared, a farm worker discovers her badly decomposed body in a drainage ditch near Putta Creek. Her throat has been cut, and she is lying in a fetal position, exactly as Sally described it. Can Rosa's body now provide the evidence needed to convict her killer? Police piece together the events of that tragic night. Rosa had been dating Jose for several months, but his violent jealousy made her want to end the relationship. She began seeing another man. Elisa believes he was the father of Rosa's youngest child. They had been together before Jose appeared.
He was jealous of my mother leaving him to go and be with my sister's father. And I think he wanted to get rid of either him, the baby's father, or do something to my mother.
When he pulled up, she knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was going to murder her. She began to beg for her life. Please, the children, please don't. And it just continued to escalate and continue to escalate. And his language became more violent and foul. And when she saw the knife, she began to pray because she knew she was dead. And I could feel her energy absolutely frantic with fear. My children. Who is going to be there for my children?
When I found more information about the position and the location of the body, the fact that she was face down in a fetal position in a ditch, that the ditch had, at some point, had water in it, and that there was indication that her throat had been the point of injury, that matched up with the information that Sally had provided.
When they found her, I cried. I cried my eyes out. Because there's still a part of me that wanted to be wrong so she could still be alive. That would have been joyous to have been wrong about. Just joyous.
Rosa's body seals Jose's fate. Whether he acted alone or had help, no one will ever know. But forensic analysis puts him at the crime scene and proves it's Rosa's blood on his shirt. Jose is convicted of second-degree murder. His defense claims he'd been motivated by jealousy causing emotional distress. He was jailed for life and must serve 16 years before he can be considered for parole.